All right, let's talk about something you see pretty much every single day, but maybe you don't really see it at all. Clouds. I mean, they seem so simple, right? So light, so kind of just there. But as we're about to find out, there is a totally staggering reality hiding in plain sight.
Just think about how we even talk about them. Our language is just filled with these phrases that make us think they're weightless. If you're on cloud nine, you're in this state of pure bliss, totally carefree, not weighed down by anything. And this phrase just nails our perception perfectly. We say something is light as a cloud. And why wouldn't we? Because when you look up, that's exactly what you see. Little harmless, fluffy puffs of cotton, or just wisps of smoke drifting so effortlessly across the sky. But what if I told you that that entire perception, an idea that's been baked into our language for centuries, is actually a profound illusion? What if the very things we use as a benchmark for lightness aren't light at all? So let's start by tackling this whole idea head-on, this deep, universal belief that what we see floating up there is light and airy. Because now, we are going to pull back the curtain on one of the most mind-bending, counterintuitive facts about our own atmosphere. Seriously, prepare to have the way you see the sky completely changed. Okay, here it is. Get this. A single, average, run-of-the-mill cumulus cloud, the friendly puffy kind you see on a nice day, weighs around 500,000 kilograms. That is 1.1 million pounds. Just let that sink in for a second. 1.1 million pounds. That number is so huge, it's almost meaningless, right? So to put that into perspective, one of those little fluffy-looking clouds has the same mass as 100 full-grown elephants. Or 2 Boeing 747 jumbo jets, just floating casually right over your head. And believe it or not, it gets even more extreme. A big, dark, gnarly storm cloud, the kind that brings thunder and rain, it can weigh billions, with a B, billions of kilograms. We're talking about literal oceans of water just suspended in the air. It's wild. So, this obviously leads to a huge paradox. I mean, if a cloud weighs as much as a whole fleet of jets, how on earth does it stay up there? Why doesn't it all just come crashing down on our heads? Well, the answer is in the absolutely incredible science that makes this whole thing possible. So let's break down the physics of these floating oceans. Okay, it all comes down to one really important idea: density. The simple answer is that the cloud, as a whole system, is actually less dense than the air around it. Think of it like a giant cruise ship. The ship is made of thousands of tons of steel, which is way denser than water. But because its shape holds a massive amount of air inside, its overall density is less than the water, so it floats. A cloud is kind of working on that same principle. It really happens in 3 key stages. First, that 1.1 million pounds of water, it's not a solid block. It's spread out across trillions of microscopic droplets over a huge, huge area. Second, all those droplets are mixed in with a massive pocket of air that's been warmed by the ground, and warm air likes to rise. It's buoyant. And third, you've got these constant upward air currents, called updrafts, that are literally pushing up on the droplets, helping keep the whole thing suspended. It is a massive, delicate balancing act. Now keep all that modern physics in your head, because we're going to pivot to something fascinating. We're going to look at a description of clouds from a text from the 7th century that presents a real puzzle. This quote here comes from the Quran, and it talks about winds carrying what's translated as heavy clouds. The specific Arabic phrase is Sahaban Thiqala. Now this is where it gets really, really interesting. The whole puzzle is right here on the slide. The text uses the word heavy to describe something that, to absolutely any person standing on the ground, looks completely weightless. So the description directly contradicts what our eyes tell us. And yet, as we just learned, it perfectly aligns with the scientific reality of a cloud's immense mass. So, of course, this leads to a debate. Is this just a metaphor, or is it an intentional statement of physical fact that somehow predates the science by 1,400 years? So let's just explore the 2 main interpretations we found in the source material. So on one hand, the skeptic's view argues that heavy is just a metaphor. It means the cloud is heavy with rain, an observation any farmer from any time period would make about a dark cloud. It's poetic language, right? Not a scientific statement about its mass. But the counter-argument says, hang on, even dark, rain-filled clouds still float, and our brain always equates floating with being light. So calling it heavy is still really counterintuitive.
They also point out that the text uses other very physical words for clouds, like stacked or woven, not poetic ones like soft or fluffy, which suggests the language is trying to be precise.
So as we start to wrap this up, let's bring these two threads back together, the modern physics and this ancient description, because both of them, in their own way, are really asking us to do the same thing, to see past a really powerful illusion. When we look at the sky, this is what our eyes tell us. It looks soft. It looks light. It looks like a piece of cotton. But this is the physical reality. It has the mass of 100 elephants just hanging out up there. And that disconnect, that gap between what we see and what's really there, is where all the fascination is. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, first, that our everyday perception can be incredibly misleading. What you see is not always what you get. Second, the physical world just operates on scales of mass and energy that are really hard for our brains to even comprehend. And finally, and maybe most importantly, that taking a second look at something you think is totally simple can reveal the most surprising and amazing truths. Which leaves us with one last thought to chew on. The weight of clouds is this massive, mind-blowing reality hidden by a simple illusion of weightlessness? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other massive illusions are out there, hiding all around us in plain sight, just waiting for us to see them for what they really are?